All right. We are live. Hello and welcome for those of you tuning in or going to be watching this after the live stream. Finally, getting around to another Neville Goddard lecture series video. It has been far too long, and I absolutely do plan on continuing this series. And for those who are maybe joining for the first time or are not aware of this series, basically, I started this a handful of months ago for the purpose of really diving into Neville's work, because more and more, as more people are finding out about the law of assumption and messages are kind of getting blended together, the Neville's message, his core message, is getting lost in translation a bit. And so started the series to read over his lectures and break down the meanings behind it, highlight the important takeaways, because as always, my aim for this channel is that everybody has a better understanding of this law and these principles and how to apply them in your life. And so today is going to be no exception. We're going to go over a lecture from Neville titled Feel Deeply. And this is actually pointing to, or I guess, a topic that I wanted to cover anyways, and I'm going to be covering in a video I'll be releasing tomorrow about the feeling state versus thought versus thinking, and what is it that actually creates. So I thought that this would be a fantastic lecture to dive into, where he discusses more about feeling and what that entails. So I will be, as usual, going back and forth between screen sharing and, going over passages and then breaking down what he means. I know Neville Goddard can be difficult to read and decipher sometimes, which is another reason that I'm diving into this. But I will be going back and forth between screen share and, let me see here. It was a later lecture of his. I know for a lot of the videos in this series, we've done some of his earlier lectures and earlier works. This was one that he gave towards the end of his years. I'm going to find the screen share. Here we go. There we go. And I couldn't find the PDF file, but that's okay. I also have the link to this lecture if you want to read through it yourself. Definitely recommend taking notes. If I'm not going to be going word for word in this lecture today, but again, more of the highlights of the important takeaways. But if you do want to read the entirety, I have it linked down in the description box below. So this is a lecture that Neville gave back in May of 1969, May 30th of 1969. So like I said, it's one of his later lectures, but a phenomenal one nonetheless. So Neville says, and I quote, "What you feel deeply is far more important than what you are thinking. You may think about doing something for a long time and never do it. But when you feel something deeply, you are spurred to act, and God acts. He who is the cause of all life acts through a sense of feeling. You can think of 1,000 things, yet not be moved to act upon one of them. A deep conviction, felt, is far more important than anything you could ever think." And I'm going to keep going for a little bit, but that first paragraph in and of itself is so important to break down. Let us turn to the first chapter of the Epistle of James. Quote, "Ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like the wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. Let not that person believe that a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways, shall receive anything from the Lord. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourself. For if you are a hearer only, and not a doer, you are like a man who observes his natural face in the mirror, and then goes his way, forgetting what he is like. But if you are a doer of the word, and not just a forgetful hearer, you will look into the perfect law of liberty, and persevere. That man shall be blessed in all of his doings." So a lot to break down there right off the bat. Comes in strong. There's a lot of questions that I've been getting asked lately. Another reason why I wanted to read from this lecture and coming out with the topic of tomorrow's video is thought versus feeling, and what is the importance when it comes to manifestation, or what is it that manifests. And to be abundantly clear, and I will be going over in tomorrow's video in more detail, they're both very important components when it comes to creation, when it comes to manifestation. But what you feel deeply is more important than what you are thinking throughout the day. I know a very, very, very common phrase that we hear constantly in the manifestation community is that your thoughts create. And though not entirely untrue, it is misleading because it's not the thoughts themselves that create. It is the feeling that creates. And I know there may be a lot of argument about that, but as far as what Neville Goddard was teaching, he was very clear in the distinction between feeling and thought. And he also goes on to reference one of my favorite passages of the Bible where he talks about the double-minded man and the importance of faith, asking in faith with no doubting, being doers of the word and not hearers only. This is something that I reference to constantly on this channel, and something that, once again, is important to keep in mind when it comes to the successful application of these teachings. Double-mindedness and doubt are the disruption of the manifestation process, bar none. But let's keep going. There's so much more to dive into. Ooh. So how do you go about being a doer in place of a hearer only? By acting in faith. Scripture's central character, called Jesus, set no limit upon the love of God and the power of faith. In fact, all of his great deeds were prefaced with the words, according to your faith. Now, faith encompasses feeling. If you have faith, you will act. And if you act, God in you is acting. For God is your own wonderful human imagination, whose eternal name is I am. He acts only when you feel it. This is true even in the most practical way. If I tell you what I would like to be, and you tell me to go my way as I am already it, and for one fleeting moment I see the world as I would see it as if it were true, then turn and walk away, forgetting what the world looked like only a moment before, I am a forgetful hearer. But if I am a doer of the word and not a hearer only, I persevere. Or, as the word is translated in the King James Version, I continue in the state, for all things are possible to the power of the word. So, again, what Neville's referencing here is you have to see yourself as what you desire to be, not just for a moment and then forget. That's being a hearer, is when we imagine something briefly and then turn our attention right back to the 3D or get caught up in the circumstances or the fears and doubts. That's being a hearer. But a doer of the word perseveres in that state. They persevere in continuing to go back to that feeling state, walking in faith that what you have felt must come to pass. Look into a mirror and you will see your face reflected there. But you have another mirror which you can look into. That is the mirror of your friends. If they heard your good news, their faces would reflect it, would they not? Assume your desire is now a fact. Feel its substance and reality. Then let your friends see you in that state. They are your living mirror. Again, reference to everyone as you pushed out. Everyone, everything in your 3D acts as a mirror, other people included. So when he says that the mirror of your friends, he's speaking about see how they would react if you told them the good news. If your friends heard the good news of you receiving your desire or getting what it is that you want, they would be happy for you. They would congratulate you. They would reflect that. So the people in your world, also a mirror. Everything is. Now persevere in that state and do not turn away and quickly forget what you are like. Walk through this door tonight in the assumption that you are the man or woman you want to be. It doesn't make any difference if the outside denies it. You have seen the expression on the faces of your friends and heard their congratulations on the inside with faith. Now carry this feeling into the deep and persevere. Conjure a living mirror of friends and acquaintances who have heard your good news and accepted it as permanent. See your face reflected in theirs. If they love you, you will see empathy. They will be rejoicing because of your good fortune. Now, persevere in that awareness and do not forget what you have seen in your living mirror. If you do, you will be blessed in that doing, as you are told in the first chapter of the book of Psalms. Blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord, the perfect law of liberty. For in all that he does, he prospers. Were you not liberated from your past when you saw your friends' faces reflecting what you wanted them to see? If you had left the state of poverty, sickness, or weakness behind and moved into a state of wealth, health, or strength, and your friends knew it, you would be set free from your former limitation. So, looking into the perfect law of liberty and persevering, you are blessed in all that you do. So another thing that I really love about this lecture is it really comes back to the basics. It comes back to the points that we hear all the time, but often forget in very, very plain terms. Were you not liberated from your past when you saw your friends' faces reflecting what you wanted them to see? So once again, see them as already hearing the good news and how they would react. This is one reason why one of my favorite ways of imagining or go-to scenes is inner conversations or telling the good news, talking about the good news to someone, a dear friend of mine or a family member, somebody that I love and trust, because this can be applied for literally anything, first off. And this is something that would naturally happen. As the events transpire, this is something that would be taking place. So it's a fantastic way to really capture that end state of something that implies you now have what it is that you desire. I tell you from personal experience that this works, but we are the operant power. It does not operate itself. You may have heard this law by the hearing of the ear and read of it in a book, but do you know that the law works from experience? Have you put it to the test? Have you proved it? If you have, then you can speak with an authority, which was not yours prior to the proving. May I tell you, through the use of this law, you are completely set free. And Neville goes on to talk about a success story of his, which I'll go ahead and read through really quick. He talks about leaving Barbados. I have been in many places where I was forced to test this principle. While on the little island of Barbados, which had only 2 small ships servicing it, as well as hundreds of islands nearby, I made a commitment to give a series of lectures in Milwaukee on the 1st of May. When I called, the shipping agent informed me that due to the fact that the ship sailing out of New York City carried only 60 passengers, and the one from Boston carried only 100, that there was no passage available before the 1st of September. He promised to put my name on the waiting list. but gave me no encouragement as the list was very long. I hung up the phone and sat in my chair in the hotel room, closed my eyes, and assumed I was aboard a ship heading to New York City. I assumed 8 or 10 of my family were coming aboard with me, and that my brother Victor was carrying my little girl. I could feel the motion of the plank. Having no stateroom committed, I remained on deck and placed my mental hands on the rail and felt the salt of the sea there. Then I looked back nostalgically at the little island. I repeated that action over and over again, feeling every step I made on that gangplank. I felt the rail and smelt the salt of the sea. I did everything that feeling could be brought to bear upon, and when my actions seemed natural, I broke it. The very next day, I received confirmation that I would be sailing on a ship which would land in New York City 1 week before my commitment in Milwaukee, which I did. When I asked the agent how I obtained the tickets, he said that they had a cancellation in New York, and the one person he had called on the waiting list felt that the timing was inconvenient. So, knowing he could accommodate my wife, our little daughter, and myself in one cabin, he let us in. I never heard why someone canceled in New York or why the one he called in Barbados could not take the ship at the time, or why the agent did not call all the others on the waiting list. I only know that I got the reservation I had imagined. Incredible, incredible success story. I love that one. I have told this story before, and someone in the audience once said, "Was that a Christian thing to do? You might have caused someone to cancel the trip." But I tell you, as I told her, it was the only Christian thing to do, for I used the Christian principle of fulfilling God's law. How it is going to be fulfilled is not my concern. I am told that whatever I desire, if I will but believe I have received it, I will. God never creates a desire in the human heart that he has not already provided its satisfaction. This is true of every desire in this world, as well as the greatest of all desires, which is the thirst for God. So a lot to break down and unpack there. First off, absolutely incredible success story against all odds. He had a commitment to be back in the States several months before there was going to be a ship available. And despite a long waiting list, the more that he continued to go to that end state, seeing himself on that ship getting ready to leave the island, he was able to see it come perfectly into fruition, even though the odds were entirely against him. Somebody had canceled. The other person that they had reached out to on the waiting list couldn't make it due to the timing. And this is something that is also really important to note because we tend to get caught up in all of the details of how something can come to us. We're very, very conditioned to think about all of the circumstances, everything that appears to be going against our favor, the improbable or impossible odds. We skip all of that. We have to skip all of that. Because in truth, we are never going to know how something is going to come to pass. And it ultimately doesn't matter because that is not our job. And one of my favorite lines in that entire passage was, God never creates a desire in the human heart that he has not already provided its satisfaction. This is true of every desire in this world. Basically, what he's saying there is your desires have already come with the ways and means of expression and satisfaction. God would not give you a desire and not also give you the means to satisfy that desire, because your desires are yours to experience. So a really beautiful note in there. So again, we want to be mindful not to get caught up in, oh, well, what if something bad has to happen in order for my manifestation to come? Or, what if somebody gets hurt? Or how is this going to happen? How is this going to, all of that conditioning completely go away. This is where faith comes in, big time. So we'll never know the ways and means. we have to go to the end. Let's continue. Do you really want an experience of God? Apply this principle towards it. Do what I did when I wanted to leave Barbados and come to America. I looked into the perfect law of liberty and persevered. God doesn't give you one law for your desires of this world and another law for which you search for your search for him. It's the same law. If you had the experience of which I speak, would you tell someone about it? Is it a consuming desire, or do you want something other than that first? Perhaps you want a lovely home, security in the sense of money in the bank that you can touch, or stocks and bonds that pay dividends. If you want to feel wealthy, travel, and have lots of things before you thirst for an experience of Christ, it is secondary, so don't try it. But if an experience of Christ is your consuming desire, then don't hesitate to put it to the test. Put first things first. If your first desire is to recognize in the work that I am doing, then apply this principle towards it and let that thirst for God take its own good time to envelop you. And when it does, apply this principle towards it. Basically, what he's saying here is whatever it is that you desire, whether that's a thirst for your spiritual development, your personal development, your relationship with God, or something to experience here in the 3D, wealth, money, health, love, whatever it may be. Put first things first. Feel in depth, for what you feel deeply is more vital than what you think. Once again, every day you can think about how wonderful it would be if, and never act. But if every day you would feel how wonderful it is now, it will become true. Shakespeare said, "Assume a virtue if you have it not." A virtue must be felt to be assumed. Refrain from the assumption tonight, and it will be easy to refrain next week, and still easier the next. But if you will assume your desire is fulfilled now, and persevere in that assumption, through the sense of feeling, it will be externalized as a literal fact in your world. This might be the most important paragraph in this entire lecture. What you feel deeply is more vital than what you think, because you can think about something all day, every day. You can think about how much you want this desire until the end of time, and you will remain desiring it. But if you were to feel now what it is like to have it, and continue to go back to that feeling, continue to go back to that state, it must be outpictured. It must become a 3D fact in your world. And I love that he puts in there, refrain from the assumption tonight, and it will be easy to refrain next week, and still easier the next. He's talking there about procrastination. He's talking there about put off tonight, and it will be easier to put it off until next week, easier the week after that. It will continue to be easy to put this off or delay it or find an excuse not to go to the end. Don't make excuses anymore. Just go there. Go there right now. Be that right now in your imagination. Feel it deeply right now. So a little way of Neville's calling people out, saying don't procrastinate. Don't put off today thinking, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow or later. It's only going to be pushed further out. I'm calling upon everyone to put this into practice. Every desire contains its own satisfaction to be fed upon. It's entirely up to you. You may feed your hunger by thinking of your desire, or feed its satisfaction by thinking from its fulfillment. It is God who gives you every desire, be it for things of this age or the age to come, as told us in the book of Amos. I will send a famine upon the world. It will not be a hunger for bread or a thirst for water, but for hearing of the word of God. Once again, every desire contains its own satisfaction. Every desire contains the ways in which it will be expressed for you, to you. And you can either feed your hunger by thinking of the desire or continue to desire it, or you can feed its satisfaction by thinking from its fulfillment. And the choice is entirely up to us. In each and every single moment, we are making a choice, consciously or not. When you want to speak the word of God, your hunger is not for the hearing of the word, but for the connection, but for the glamour connected with the teaching. It is a spotlight you desire, and that too has been provided for. Every desire can and will be satisfied if you look into the law of liberty and persevere. Then you will be blessed in all you do. So what he's saying here is your desire is not to just learn about these teachings, but you want to experience it. It's the spotlight or experience that you are craving. And if you look into the law of liberty, the law of assumption, another name for it, and persevere, you will be blessed in all you do. Then he goes on to talk about, a success story of a friend of his or somebody he knows. I'm going to skip that one because it's pretty much, what typically Neville talks about. But if you want to read in its entirety, I've left the link to the lecture in the description box. His request did not offend my moral code, so I can easily say that he is successful. But I urge you who are sincere to try to create within yourself a longing for the deepest of all desires, and that is to know God from experience. If you can really thirst for God above everything else, then use the same law of liberty. Look into the faces of your friends and say with deep conviction and feeling, I've had the experiences of which Neville speaks. The entire series, from the resurrection through the descent of the dove, has unfolded within me. Then persevere, for God has not provided a satisfaction for that hunger, and you will know it. But if this hunger is not yet upon you, and you sincerely want a better way of living, that is not wrong. Simply use the same principle of the perfect law of liberty and persevere. Having acted, don't turn and forget what you have done, but sleep in that conviction, and in a way you do not know, it will be yours. So what he's referring to there, I know that might be a confusing blurb, but what he's referring to there is if you desire to know God from experience, use this law. Imagine or feel yourself, tell yourself that you've had the experiences that Neville speaks about, which he's referring to here with the resurrection through the descent of the dove. He's referring to the promise. So he's speaking about if you want to experience the promise, if you want to deepen your spiritual evolution, your relationship with God, to know God, you can use this law for that. Or if you would rather experience the things of this life, the material, the, money, good health, success, love, any of that, that's fine too. The law works for all things. Does not matter. All of it. So I thought that's a beautiful, beautiful point that he makes. And he goes on to talk about a topic that I absolutely need to speak on more on this channel. Tonight, many of our friends are not here because it is Memorial Day. But I tell you, not one moment in time is holier than another, and there is no earthly place more sacred than the other. Wherever you stand is sacred ground because you are there. Today, millions are celebrating Memorial Day, remembering the dead and placing flowers on a grave their loved ones do not occupy. This morning, just prior to waking, I saw my brother Lawrence. He died at the age of 62, but looked much older because he had suffered so much before his departure. This morning, he was only about 23 years of age. We were both fully awake, and he asked me to tell his wife that the money he left for her was for her, and not to save it for the children. I said, Lawrence, you do not have to go through me to tell Doris. She wouldn't give one penny to anyone anyways. She never has. Do you think she would change now? Her only concern is that you did not give it all to her, but shared equally with your 4 children. But I was with Lawrence. He was strong, strapping, and handsome, blond with brown eyes. He is the same Lawrence, with the same intelligence he had when he left here. He is younger now, but still has the memory of the family he left behind. The veil is no clearer to him there than it is to those on this side. Only one who is awake can penetrate this veil consciously. It is easy now for me to go beyond the world of dream and enter the world of spirit, waking, and meet my friends there. So Neville is referring to the fact that, yes, nothing dies. And he gave many accounts of people that he spoke to who had passed away in this world. And the way that Neville would explain it is when he saw them, they were youthful. They didn't look old or sick, perhaps, as when they had passed in this timeline. Interesting little blurb there. But I will definitely be making a video talking more about the topic of death. I know it is a very heavy topic. I know it is one that many people ask about, and that's a whole video topic in and of itself, and other lectures that he goes into in more detail in and of itself. But nothing and nobody dies. Death as we see it is an illusion. But on Memorial Day, men think of the dead, while I am speaking of life everlasting. Let the dead bury the dead, and follow me. For I have risen from the dead, and I speak of a living God who is real. I cannot go to a cemetery and put flowers or a flag on that which is not there. The body may have been placed there, but not the spirit. You are buried in the skull, and in that skull you will remain, dreaming your dream of life until you awaken and are born the second time. It is from there you are going to find David, who reveals you as God the Father. It is from there you are going to be split in two and ascend into the Holy of Holies. You will be begotten in that skull, and you will live, and you will end the drama there, to know you are one with the one and only living God. Again, he's referencing the promise, which, yes, I'm going to make another video about the promise, since that is another one that comes up often. I've made one video about the promise already, which you guys can check out if you haven't yet, but it's essentially the awakening to knowing that you are, in fact, God. In the most simple terms, that's how I can explain it. There's more to it than that, and then, of course, he talks about, lastly, in the 25th and 27th chapters of the book of Genesis, the story is told of Isaac, who has 2 sons. The first son, Esau, had hair all over his body, while the second son, Jacob, was hairless. Being blind, Isaac calls Esau and asks him to go get some venison for dinner. Jacob, having overheard the request, clothed himself in the skins of his brother Esau and took the venison to his father. Isaac, hearing Jacob's voice, began to doubt until he felt his reality and caught his odor. Satisfying himself that the son was real, Jacob was given the father's blessing. When Esau returned from the hunt, Jacob disappeared, but Isaac said, "Although your brother came through deception, I have given him your blessing and I cannot take it back." Now he's going to translate all that. After smothering yourself in feeling, you have sent it on its way and cannot take it back. For prayer is nothing more than the subjective appropriation of an objective hope. Imagine by giving objective reality to your hope. Hair is the most objective thing on a man. Bring your hope so close that you can feel what it would be like if it were objective to you. Clothe yourself in that feeling, and you have clothed yourself in the reality of an Esau. The world will not immediately reflect your feeling, but you have set your desire in motion and cannot take it back. You have given a subjective state your blessing by giving it objective reality. Now it must fulfill its destiny so that you will be blessed in all that you are doing. So I know that that was a lot there. So let me break this down really quick. When he talks about subjective appropriation of an objective hope, um, or he's referring to prayer is basically you are experiencing in imagination as though it is objectively here right now. Or what he says, giving objective reality to your hope, give as much tone of reality to what you are imagining as though you are experiencing it in the 3D. Feel it as real as possible. Bring in your senses when and if possible. That doesn't mean that it has to be, as solid as the 3D out here, but the more that we can create this objective feeling internally, that's sending it on its way. That's clothing it in feeling. And I will be going into this more in tomorrow's video that I'm going to be releasing. But essentially, that feeling state, feeling the realness, the reality of that feeling state, is what leaves impressions. Let's continue. I know we're nearing the end here. You've given a subjective state your blessing by giving it objective reality. So yeah, you've given tones of reality to that imagined state. If you don't give your subjective hope objective reality, you can't be blessed in its fulfillment. Basically, if you don't feel it real, it's not going to go further than just a daydream or fantasy. You must clothe yourself in the feeling that is your wish fulfilled. Jacob is your desire, waiting to be clothed in the feeling of external reality. Catch the feeling, and you have clothed Jacob with the external reality of Esau. Now deceive yourself into believing that your desire is externally real, and give it your blessing by subjectively appropriating your objective hope. Who is the blind Isaac? You are, for you cannot see what you are asking for in your outer world. It's a hope, and you are blind to it. But when you clothe yourself in the feeling of its fulfillment, you are eating the feeling of satisfaction. Feast upon this feeling morning, noon, and night, and in a way you do not know, your desire will become an objective reality in your world. In this story, we see the importance of feeling. Isaac asked Jacob to come close and kiss him. The word translated kiss means to set on fire, to burn, to touch. That's an emotion, an intense feeling. Reality is felt through the sense of touch. Feeling is touch. Tasting is touch. Scripture tells us he tasted death for all of us. How do you taste death? By experiencing it. Jesus tasted death by dying in all, that all may know who he is. So basically, the word kiss translated here is feeling. Whether that's an emotion, whether that's a sense, like a physical sense, taste, touch, smell, clothe it in feeling what you are imagining and feel it as real as possible. Now, I urge you to put his teachings into practice. He taught you to simply appropriate a subjective state, an imaginal act, which is your objective hope, and know it must externalize itself in your world. Do that, and it will. Ask in faith, without a doubt, for those who doubt are like the wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. They are double-minded, for they know what they are while desiring to be something else. You must be single-minded by dropping what you believe you are and assuming that you are already what you desire to be, for you cannot desire something you already possess. Look into the wonderful law of liberty, which sets you free, and you will see your freedom in the faces of your friends. Persist in your assumption, and it must come to pass. Now let us go into the silence. Absolutely amazing lecture. Absolutely beautiful lecture. And even one of his later ones, I love this. Number one, it is in most part very simple and straightforward. It comes back to the points that we have to remember, that this is all about single-mindedness. This is all about faith. This is all about that feeling state. And by feeling, that is the reality of it. Using your imagination, which is your creative power, to feel deeply that something is real and true for you right now. This is far more important than anything that you could possibly think in your day-to-day. Because what you feel to be true is true for you, now and always. But I just had to share. I had to absolutely cover this one today because, again, I'm going to be talking more on thoughts versus feeling tomorrow in tomorrow's video. And I think this does a wonderful way of kind of summarizing a lot of the important points here. I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you gleaned a lot from it. If you have questions, feel free to leave comments. And until next time, you guys, appreciate you being here. Take care. Much love to each of you. Bye now.